Coming up, the revolving door of Alaska prisons.
The judge said, hey, look here, Wood. I have seen you since you was 18.
How Senate Bill 91 sets out to fix this and save us money.
It's not soft on crime. It is smart on crime.
It favors the criminal. It doesn't favor those of us in the community.
Ahead, what's at stake in a debate that's far from over?
Sponsorship for Frontiers with Rhonda McBride is provided by your local Alaska Toyota dealers. Toyota, let's go places. Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers. With challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come. Bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to our program as we look at one of the most challenging frontiers in our state, how we Alaskans deal with crime and punishment. It's a big ticket item in the Alaska Department of Corrections, more than $300 million a year. A new state law, Senate Bill 91, is supposed to save money and reform our justice system, but for many, the jury is still out. A fellow inmate taught Aaron Lesky to play the guitar just a few months ago, something he hopes will help him avoid his old patterns. When he's finally released from the Cordova Center.
2 blankets, a bottom sheet, top sheet, pillowcase, and a towel, and a cup.
Willie Roundtree's job to hand out bedding to new arrivals here.
And I bring them in here.
He definitely has the experience. He says he's been convicted 70 times.
The judge said, hey, look here, Willie. I have seen you since you was 18. You gotta choose. You're gonna either do right or do wrong.
Today is a really good day for the Department of Corrections.
This open house at the Cordova Center celebrates a milestone for the department's halfway house programs. In the last year, it cut the statewide number of walkaways down from more than a couple of dozen a month to just a few.
I live for hallmark moments when I see progress being made.
With walkaways down, the department no longer spends as much money cycling inmates back into the system. And with a multi-billion-dollar state budget gap to close, every bit helps.
If there's a silver lining to this financial crisis that we are in as an state, it has laser focused where things aren't working so well.
An added incentive? Prison reforms under SB 91. The department pushed its halfway house contractor to get ready. It finally agreed to retrain its staff, station them throughout the building to interact more with inmates, and to provide more programs.
You can't have idle time in these places. You either have to have training or you have to have job readiness. Get people ready to go.
This picture right here, I draw because this is Alaska, you know.
And Rusty Balantek feels ready to go. In the meantime, through his art, he hopes to inspire other inmates to make the most of their time here.
I draw this from my heart, and it's for everybody.
Under changes in the system, Rusty will be out earlier than he expected. From computer labs to look for work to a program called Moral Recognition Therapy, which teaches inmates how to make better decisions, Rusty believes he's a different person now.
It's helped me a lot, though, nowadays, because I used to be a quiet person. I don't even want to talk at all.
Although Rusty communicates beautifully through his art, he only recently learned to talk his way through problems. Therapy, he says, opened his eyes.
I kind of shy sometimes, but it's a good thing I started expressing myself.
Many are surprised to learn that more than 80% of those who draw a prison sentence have committed misdemeanors. And about 3/4 of those sentenced serve time for nonviolent crimes. And then about 2/3 who leave the system are jailed again within 3 years. If SB 91 works as the legislature intends, nonviolent offenders will serve less time and have more options.
If you can do it in a way that keeps people safe and saves money. You have a win-win situation.
Bill Wielechowski is a Democrat. Along with some of the legislature's most conservative Republicans, he supported SB 91.
It's taking money that you would be saving from not locking these people up and investing it in a variety of things that will hopefully help them to break the cycle.
I do think criminal justice reform was based on very good intentions. You know, we do know it's broken. The hard on crime doesn't work. I understand that. Victims understand that. Offenders understand that. But we haven't given them what they're going to need to break that cycle and do what's the right thing.
Victims' rights advocates worry that offenders won't get the treatment programs promised under the new law.
I think it all started out with the spirit of helping people break the cycle. I think it's ended up being a cost-saving measure.
In her fight for justice, Edie Grunwald keeps up a steady stream of court appointments. Her son David was tortured and murdered, and the web of suspects and new charges, like child pornography, only grows darker and more tangled. Although SB 91 was not in effect when her son was killed, she worries about the fallout.
My son's gone, okay? He's gone. This doesn't do anything for me. I'm worried about your son, their daughter, people that are trying to do right in life.
Grunwald says SB 91 goes too far and cuts low-level offenders too much slack.
A lot of criminals who get away with stuff are probably laughing at it, thinking this is a great deal. We can do more crimes and not do the time.
These are tragic, tragic situations, and we need to work with victims in all crimes, but we need to be really, really careful about now kicking the most promising piece of legislation.
Does it need to be tweaked? I think we absolutely should keep an eye on it. And many of us, when we voted on it, knew it was a bit of a leap, and we wanted to give it a chance because we recognized the current system was not working.
Some fear the new law will not save the corrections system enough money to cover the cost for more treatment.
The biggest red flag in our whole state, whether it's crime-related or not, is our heroin and substance abuse problems.
If you're not going to provide the resources to try to rehabilitate them, then this will not work.
Senator Bill Wielechowski says it's up to the public to keep the pressure on lawmakers to live up to the promises made in the bill. While the debate goes on, a new mural takes shape here at the Cordova Center. For many years, these walls were blank. And now for those about to leave the system, they are a symbol of change and hope that help will be there when they reach out. Still to come, Senate Bill 91 remains a work in progress, and one of the key pieces won't be enacted until next year, a pretrial division to better assess how to help inmates. Up next, one of the architects of this bill, Senator John Coghill, he joins us for a look at what's next for Alaska prisons.
When it comes to winter driving, count on Toyota. Featuring 8 different vehicles with available 4 or all-wheel drive, like RAV4, available as gas only, or the RAV4 Hybrid. Both loaded with incredible safety features, plenty of cargo space, 60/40 split rear seats, and an optional foot-activated liftgate. RAV is also a recipient of NHTSA's 5-star safety rating. It has a dynamic exterior and a stylish interior, loaded with technology. Top it off with excellent limited-time savings. Get your RAV4 at Kendall Toyota of Anchorage. Toyota, let's go places.
At ConocoPhillips, we're going to great lengths to develop Alaska's potential. We're investing in a game-changing drilling rig that can develop an area 125 square miles from a single drilling pad. That's more than twice the area we're able to reach today. And with extreme maneuverability and precision, we can access new deposits, more oil, smaller footprint, less impact on the environment. We're not waiting for the future, we're reaching for it. ConocoPhillips, unlocking Alaska's energy resources.
Hi, my name is Ted, and have I got a bed? I've got the adjustable electric bed. It goes up and it goes down. If you want to be comfortable and watch TV, that's the bed. I simply sell them for less right here at a Mattress Ranch store.
Get more sleep without counting sheep and have another night of bliss. Sleep in style with a big old smile, and you know you save some bucks. Save more bucks at the Mattress Ranch.
When you hear the word cancer, sometimes it's a difficult word to hear and you don't want to accept it. There was just a lot of support right away. It was like everybody just came out and kind of wrapped their arms around me and said it's going to be okay. It's kind of lifted me up to know that there's a lot of people out there who care, who've been in the same situation, who give me hope and motivate me to just be strong and keep going, and that's what I'm doing. So, I mean, you know, when people write in, I wonder sometimes that they don't think it matters, but it does matter.
We talked with a group of inmates from Cordova Center to get their take on prison reform. They're getting ready to go out into the world, and some have taken advantage of the programs that have been offered to them, like alcohol treatment and group therapy, and say that they've made a big difference.
I voluntarily signed up for the classes because I know that I need to make changes for myself.
I feel good about my sobriety, and I don't want to ever lose it. You know, it's the only thing I've got.
We need at least more programs to help, you know, with vocational training.
I know I'm growing. I know that, you know, I'm moving forward. I don't want to hurt anybody.
One of the inmates told us that he thinks an individualized approach works best, and most of all, they're just hopeful that they won't be back. And that's what Senate Bill 91 hopes to do, to close the revolving door. It's a huge bill, lots of moving pieces, and joining us now to explain some of the thinking behind it, Senator John Coghill from Fairbanks. A lot of people probably don't realize that you have another life outside the legislature as a minister. Did that play into your passion for this issue?
Sure. There's no doubt that being in the legislature brings a lot of this stuff to light, but your heart is in your, you want to make people have a good, maybe avenue of success. And I was that way for 15 years as a pastoral worker, and I worked many times in the jails. But what we found in the legislature is that 2/3 of the people getting out of jail are returning. The misdemeanor population had grown significantly, which means our jails were full of people who, if given an opportunity to change their behavior, probably could. People were staying longer in pretrial, and we had more people in pretrial than ever before.
Well, let's take a look at some of the two main goals of SB 91. And one is to focus the beds on the ones that cause the trouble, the violent inmates, and then also to kind of divert the nonviolent. So how do you figure that works?
Well, you have to have a programmatic approach. And as it was said here, an individualized approach is so important. So for those who will change their lot in life, we want to give avenues for them to do that. For those who have done egregious things that they just cannot, prison and punishment is what's going to happen. But we also call ourselves a correction system. It's a prison correction system. So you want to allow for individualized correction capacity in there. So programs have waxed and waned over the years. And this approach is, say, instead of using all the money for the beds, let's take some of that money and put it into programs that hold them accountable differently, but still hold them accountable, but give them the avenue where they can change their behavior, where they don't return to jail for that very issue again.
Well, let's talk about the growth in the prison system, because I think that kind of gave the impetus for this bill to pass.
Yes, way over double the population growth of Alaska, so this is just not going to work. And we built a prison just recently, and we thought that would maybe take care of some of the issues. And within the time that prison was being filled up, we realized our population is already way over capacity.
So what would be the cost of yet another prison?
Probably somewhere around $300 to $500 million. And our annual budget is about $300 million for our prison system now. So easily $500 million, I think, by the time it's all said and done in this environment. We just can't afford that. What we can afford is to look at people individually and say, if you could enter society and be more productive, still be held accountable, though, for why you're there. I don't think anybody has a problem with being held accountable. I think they have a problem with being maybe held accountable inappropriately. So it's a change in our system. So all the way from how we charge people, to how we pretrial people, to how they can get good time in jail, and how we deal with them in their post years in probation parole. All of those things were looked at in Senate Bill 91.
And one of the things that we always hear is justice delayed is justice denied. Yeah. But it seems like when you have so many people, such a large percentage of people in pretrial as opposed to those that are being sentenced.
That's a problem. the speedy trial that we all try to go for. If you're languishing in a pretrial circumstance for years, while the public defender, the prosecutors are going through their machinations, and your life is just on hold. You lose your jobs, you can't re-enter back easily, and then you do have to face your sentencing. Quite often, it's bargained down. So what can we do better? So we set in this Senate Bill 91, a pretrial services that looks at people on a risk-based assessment.
Now that hasn't come into effect
That'll be in
yet.
about a year. It takes a while to stand up an issue like that, where you have you're going to have new employees and you're going to have a new look. Right now, you go into jail, and based on bail, you stay in jail or not. If you can afford it, you're out. Doesn't matter how dangerous you are.
Now, one of the things that we've heard about is that this bill tries to cut some of the red tape for inmates, like it allows a path to get your driver's license back.
Sure.
For someone that's been a victim of a DWI, now that could be kind of scary, the thought that some
public
folks...
safety and accountability were what we looked at, but we also looked at how can somebody better their lot in life. And we had created a system where, under certain circumstances, you lose your driver's license for your life. Well, many of them were doing that in their 20s and getting their life squared away in their 30s and 40s, and they still couldn't drive, couldn't go to work. So we created a system where you can get your driver's license back by going through a specialty court and being accountable under certain circumstances. And there are many ways you have to allow people to succeed. Otherwise, you give them that hopeless, kind of sequestered into a life of crime. So that you have to have avenues out. And that's what our programs are going to have to do. They're going to have to look at reentry. They're going to have to look at how you deal with drugs, how you deal with alcohol. And our behavioral health system has to have an ability to deal with people who have a crime background.
So one of the things that people worry about, though, is this thing is set up so that you take your savings and then you pump them back into programs. Mm-hmm. Some 99 million is supposed to go back into programs, but with such a huge budget deficit, a lot of people worry that that money is not going to be there to support these inmates that are getting out earlier.
We just have to do it. We just have to. I don't think we're in a circumstance where we have the privilege of waiting to do this. We do know that programs work. We took and looked all over the United States. We looked throughout Alaska, and we got proven practices that will work. So these are all data-driven, pretty well settled that these things work. And so we have to do that. I can tell you this, we can't afford to build another prison. We can't afford to have an overcrowded prison. We can't afford to have more crime on the streets. So we have to divert people into ways that they're not, those who will change their behavior, they'll be more productive and safer in society.
Now,
so
one
we
of the
just have to
things
do it.
that people, are surprised about is that Republicans, along with Democrats, work together on this. And usually Republicans tend to be tough on crime. They don't want to coddle inmates. And I'm not suggesting that this bill does, but it is very inmate friendly in some ways.
It's people friendly. You have to recognize that people in the jail system are people. And there are some that will change and some that need to be punished. I think you do need to be tough on crime. I think people get tired of being victimized. So this gave, in Senate Bill 91, victims benefits and practices that are going to help victims be a part of the system. That's an accountability part that I think is high.
It also toughened the murder sentences.
It toughened up some of the murder sentencing. So you have to do that, be tough. But accountability is just as tough. If somebody's sitting in jail watching television and then you just set them out of jail, what good have we done? But if you can have them sitting in a program, same time, less cost, accountability for why they're in jail, change their behavior, society's better, we're safer, less crime. And that's the approach we want to take. And most people say that's a good approach. Most people say it's not going to work. And I say in Alaska, we have to make it work. We just have to. So getting the money into the programs is part of the deal.
That people are sort of amazed about is that this did result from a bipartisan effort.
Sure.
Will we see more of that? I mean, what did it take to get people to try to solve this?
Well, we know that across the aisle, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, this touches almost every family in Alaska in one way or another. The drugs, the alcohol, the costs, they're going to touch us all. And so we're all in this together. So I think having a bipartisan approach to this is good. That way it's not labeled you're light on crime, you're hard on crime. This is how do we do it best in Alaska.
And of course, Senator Johnny Ellis was involved with that.
He was, yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, Senator John Coghill, for coming all the way to Anchorage for this. Still to come, life after prison, not what you'd expect. How Venus Woods served time at the Highland Mountain Correctional Center and went on to become a leader in the field of prison reentry.
I just want cremation.
Cremation specialists in Alaska.
Can I have a service before cremation?
Our staff is committed to serving your needs.
I just want something basic. The simpler, the better.
Specializing in simple cremations. Whatever your reasons are for choosing cremation, call Cremation Society of Alaska, 277-2777, or in the Valley, 373-8627, and on the web at alaskacremation.com.
Catch all of the Seawolves home games live on Channel 907, exclusively on GCI. Visit GoSeawolves.com for complete game schedules. Brought to you in part by Andre's Fine Menswear and Custom Tailors and the Peanut Farm.
To be an anchor is to stay in one place. But don't tell that to KTVA 11 anchor Emily Carlson. For Emily, journalism isn't a desk job. Because to understand Alaska, you've got to embrace it. Every corner, every season. Because an anchor gets rusty unless it keeps moving. Emily Carlson at KTVA 11 News. Be there.
KTVA Special Reports from Inside the Gates, a unique look at military life and living in Alaska. Sponsored by Anchorage Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Center.
At ANTHC, we're providing holistic care for the complete health of our people. Our ongoing investment in cutting-edge technology means that a patient can be seen, diagnosed, and treated faster. It means communities can track and respond to changes in their environment. It means our energy is more affordable, our water is cleaner, and our people are healthier. We're working in partnership towards our vision that Alaska Native people are the healthiest people in the world.
The true price of prison is hard to know, but one thing we do know, it costs a lot to run them, and then there's also the human factor. And joining us to help us understand that side of the equation, Venus Woods with the Cook Inlet Tribal Council. She is the prison reentry supervisor, and I think a lot of folks would be surprised to know, here you have this successful career, but you've had a long journey, and maybe you could explain to us how it all got started.
Sure. So I grew up in a household with both my parents struggled with substance use issues, and actually my grandparents did as well. And in my late 20s, I started using methamphetamines and ended up in prison where I hit rock bottom. My children were placed in OCS custody, and I went in and out for a few years, and then finally, I got sentenced in 2009 to 33 months. I was able to get out on electronic monitoring and do some of my time on that, but it really, I had really hit my personal rock bottom and decided that I was going to do things differently.
So how did you evolve from an inmate all the way to the supervisor of a reentry program?
Well, it's been a long process, but when I got out, I went through a couple reentry programs. I did outpatient treatment at Cook Inlet Tribal Council, and I decided I want to do this. I want to work with people like me, and give back to them and show them that it can be done. I got hired at Alaska Native Justice Center. They had a mentor program, and I got hired to start that mentor program. And I worked hard, and I worked my way up there to program manager, and then I left there and went over to Cook Inlet Tribal Council. They were just expanding their reentry program.
So what kind of things do you keep alive from your prison experience as you work with inmates?
You know, I always tell people to remember that first night in booking. Remember that first night in booking when you're probably laying on the floor crying, begging God, you know, I would do anything to get out of here. And remember that feeling in your stomach, because, you know, when you start to do well, a lot of people get compliant, you know, or they get complacent is the word I was looking for. And I tell them, don't ever forget that first night in booking, because that's going to keep you doing well. You know, that's gonna be the motivation you need to continue.
So we see Alaska Natives disproportionately represented in the prison system. Why do you think that is?
You know, I think there's a lot of reasons, but I think one of the biggest reasons is that we have a lot of Alaska Natives that come from rural villages, and they do their time here in Anchorage, and then they have programs to do, whether it's sex offender treatment or substance use treatment, anger management classes that they just don't have in the villages. So they're forced to stay in Anchorage and do those treatments.
And that's probably the worst place for them to try to recover.
Right, because they're away from their families, they're away from the life that they've known, they're, you know, here trying to be successful, and a lot of times they'll go back to prison because they just can't do it.
So how are you helping now to try to, they have to do some of their work here in Anchorage, but what can you do to kind of prevent them from going back?
So, you know, what we can do is provide programs that they need. You know, we have a residential program for men called Sean Lute, and it's an 8-month program, which is, you know, kind of a long-term program, but it gives them that time to readjust into society while they're learning work skills, while they're getting their treatment. They live in a structured, sober setting. And we also have alumni services, transitional services, so that when they're done, they can move on, but they're not really done. We're still working with them.
Well, that's the key, I think, is that you just don't go cold turkey when you get out.
Right.
I want to thank you very much, Venus Woods, for joining us. And we'll be hearing more about prison reform as SB 91 takes effect. And we hope that maybe we've answered some of your questions, perhaps raised a few more. We want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. We'll see you next week.